Hi guys, Deanne here from Canada Abroad, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most popular provincial nominee programs in Canada, and that is the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, or OINP as many people call it. We're going to be talking about the different types of programs that they have and how you can meet the requirements to be eligible for one of these different programs. So first, it's important to note that Express Entry has two different types of provincial nominee programs. There are those that are Express Entry aligned, and what that means is you need to have a valid Express Entry profile in order to qualify. And if you were to receive a provincial nomination through one of those programs, what happens is the provincial nomination gets loaded onto your Express Entry profile. You'll get 600 additional points added to your comprehensive ranking system score, and then you would receive an invitation to apply for permanent residence through the Express Entry system. Now, the other programs are not Express Entry aligned. So what this means is they are in no way related to Express Entry. If you have an Express Entry profile, it's completely separate. If you don't have an Express Entry profile, that's completely fine. You don't need one. If you apply through one of the non-Express Entry streams, what you do first is you create an expression of interest through the OINP website. Ontario then assigns you a score based on their own scoring system. And if you want to calculate what your score might be, we have a free OINP calculator that you can use just by clicking the link above. Now, what you'll see is it'll give you a score, and when Ontario selects people, they will select you from different streams. It'll look at where you're working, where your job offer is, how long you've been working there for, what is your salary, have you earned a certain amount of money in the last year, what are your language results. Some of them will look at your education as well. And they will then use this score to select people. So they could say, today we're gonna pick from the job offer, international student, and you have to have a score of X, Y, Z. Or they could target both your score and your occupation code. So there's a variety of ways that they can do that. But the important thing is that you first have to create that expression of interest in order to be considered for those non-Express Entry streams. Now with the Express Entry aligned programs, how it would work is you would actually, number one, want to make sure that you meet the requirements to enter the Express Entry system. If you want to learn about that, you can just click the link below, and we've linked to how to assess yourself for Express Entry. Once you've confirmed that you meet the requirements of an Express Entry stream, you need to gather your documents. So doing an approved language test, and if you studied outside of Canada, getting an educational credential assessment. Once you have those documents and a valid passport, you can then enter your profile into the Express Entry system. You'll then be given your comprehensive ranking system score, and then at that stage, you could be considered for these Express Entry programs. Now, the important thing to note is you might have the work experience required for some of these streams. You might have the language scores required, and you could have the actual score that they pick. But depending on how many people they could pick in a specific draw, you could still meet all the criteria and not get selected. Because again, let's just say that they only have 200 people that they can invite, but there's 500 people that meet the criteria. Unfortunately, 300 people are not going to get selected. So important to keep that in mind. We don't see this happen too often, but it does occur. And with this, again, you'll want to check which occupation codes have been targeted in the last year to give you a bit of an indication of what you can expect this year. So some people expect that the human capital priority stream will pick all NOC codes, but unfortunately it's not the case. Now for the Express Entry aligned streams, there are only a few programs that they have. There's the very popular Human Capital Priority Stream. And with this stream, what they do is they target people based on occupation codes, and they will also use your comprehensive ranking system score. So typically what we see is when they're targeting these codes, and I'm just using an example code, they could say this is for healthcare workers, so doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, specialists. And what we find is they will pick those that have a comprehensive ranking system score just below what the federal government is targeting. So if your score is not high enough for the express entry draws or the targeted draws and express entry, then there is a chance that you could get picked by Ontario through their Human Capital Priorities Stream. And if you want to know a bit more about which occupation codes they have been choosing, you can just click the link below and it'll take you to an article I did that outlines the different occupations that they've been recruiting. Now, the other two express entry aligned programs that they have, the first one is the French speaking skilled worker stream. And this one looks at applicants who have a certain level of French proficiency. So they've done an approved French language test that is on their express entry profile. And with those draws, we've seen that they can do what's called a general draw. So as long as you meet the language criterias, they will just look at your comprehensive ranking system score. Sometimes they have targeted that you need a certain occupation code and a certain CRS score on top of your language proficiency. And then lastly, there's the skilled trade stream. So this is for individuals who have work experience in one of their trades that they are looking for. And again, you would have to have a certain comprehensive ranking system score. If you want to learn more about the different codes that are being targeted or the French levels that you require, again, you can just click the link below in the description of this video and it'll take you through to all of those specific requirements. Now we're going to be looking at the non-express entry streams. These are often referred to as Ontario's expression of interest streams. So these are the ones that you're going to be creating an expression of interest directly through the OINP website. And this is the one where they use their own scoring system, so it's separate from the comprehensive ranking system score. And again, if you are looking for that OINP calculator, I've also put that in the description below. So first up is the Employer Job Offer International Student Stream. So this one does require a job offer, and it requires that you have completed a specific qualification from one of the recognized institutions. So for this one, it will require an undergraduate degree, so a bachelor's as an example, from a recognized Canadian educational institution. And the program has to have taken at least 2 years or longer if pursued on a full-time basis. The second option is graduate programs that take at least 1 year if they were pursued on a full-time basis from a recognized Canadian educational institution. There's college graduate certificates that take at least 1 year to complete on a full-time basis from a recognized Ontario educational institution. And then there's the university graduate certificates that at least take 1 year to complete on a full-time basis. And those ones again have to be done through an Ontario educational institution. And when you're submitting your actual application, so not just the expression of interest, but the actual application, you had to have graduated within the last 2 years. So if it's been longer than 2 years, you cannot use this stream. And in terms of the job offer requirements, the employer that's offering you the position has to have been an active business for at least 3 years before you're submitting the application. So brand new businesses would not qualify here. They have to have a business premises in Ontario where you would be reporting to work. So if they do not actually have a presence in Ontario and you're working remotely for a company that's not physically present in Ontario, again, that would not qualify. Depending on the location of the business, if it's in the Greater Toronto area, its gross annual revenue needs to be at least $1 million Canadian. If it's outside of the Greater Toronto area, its gross annual revenue needs to be at least $500,000 per year. If the business is located in the Greater Toronto Area, they have to have at least 5 permanent staff members that are Canadian citizens or permanent residents. If it's outside of the Greater Toronto Area, they need to have at least 3 full-time employees that are Canadian citizens or permanent residents. And you need to ensure that you're earning the minimum wage for your occupation in Ontario in order to qualify for this stream as well. And if you need help figuring this out, you can just click in the link below, and we've explained how to check what that salary is so that you can verify that you're being paid enough to meet the requirements of the program. Now, with this stream, the job offer has to be in an occupation code that is classified as tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. If the job offer is in a tier level 4 or 5 occupation, then you cannot apply through this specific stream. Next is the employer job offer in demand skills stream. Now for this one, there is a specific list of occupations that they are targeting. So you would have to be getting the job offer in one of these targeted occupations. And again, you can click the description below and it'll take you to that list of the different occupations. Now you have to make sure that you have accumulated at least 9 months of paid full-time work experience in Ontario in the occupation code that the job offer is in. So if you don't have that required work experience or it's in a different NOC code, then you would not be able to go through this stream. And for this one, you would have to make sure that you have a valid language test result on your Express Entry profile. And for this one, you would have to have at least a CLB level 4 or higher in each of the 4 sections in order to qualify. Education-wise, you have to have a minimum of a high school diploma, either done in Canada or the equivalent abroad. And if you did not complete your education in Canada, you would have to do an educational credential assessment. And if you want to learn more about the organizations that do that, you can just click the link in the description below. Next is the employer job offer foreign worker stream. For this stream, your job offer has to be in an occupation that is tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. In terms of your experience, there's 2 ways to meet this criteria. If your occupation is one that requires specific licensing or authorization in order to do your job, if you have that specific license or authorization, then that is the requirement met. If you're in an occupation that does not require specific authorization or licensing, then you have to have at least 2 years of full-time paid work experience or equivalent and part-time work in the same NOC code as the job offer that you are using. And that 2 years of work experience has to have been obtained within the 5 years preceding the date of your application. So if that work experience was 6 or 7 years ago, then it would not be used for this type of application. So you always want to make sure that you meet that requirement. Now, if you are a physician that is working in Ontario, you could be eligible to apply through the stream without an actual job offer. If this is the case for you, you have to make sure that you are registered and in good standing with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario in one of the following 3 categories: independent practice, academic practice, or postgraduate education. And the second requirement is that you're eligible to receive payments for publicly funded health services in accordance with the Health Insurance Act of 1990. Now, the next 2 streams are also for international graduates. There's the Master's Graduate Stream and the PhD Graduate Stream. Now, for this one, you need to have completed an eligible master's degree for one of the approved educational institutions in Ontario. You need to have written an approved English or French test and received a CLB or NCLC level 7 in all 4 sections of that test. You need to have lived in Ontario for at least 1 year within the past 2 years on legal status. And that 12 months can be cumulative. So if you are moving back and forth as long as it totals 12 months within the past 2 years. And you need to submit your full application, so not just the expression of interest, but the full application within 2 years of graduating from your master's program. Now next is the PhD graduate stream. For this one, you need to have graduated with a PhD from a qualifying Ontario educational institution. And as part of that program, at least 2 years of study towards the PhD need to have actually been done in Ontario. You need to have lived in Ontario for at least 12 months in the past 2 years. And this can be cumulative. So if you are, some time in one province, some in another, as long as it totals 12 months within the past 2 years, you can meet that requirement. You need to apply. So again, not the expression of interest, but the full application needs to be submitted within 2 years of the date of your graduation. Now with these expression of interest programs, the way that it would work is you would, number one, make sure that you meet all of the eligibility criteria of one of the programs. Then you would register with OINP and create your expression of interest on their website. And then you need to sit and wait for them to do draws. So with this program, they do draws where they're gonna name the program that they are picking from. They are going to list which NOC codes were included and what your score needed to be. So you would have to meet all 3 criteria in order to receive an invitation to apply for a provincial nomination. Once you receive that notification, you then need to log back in to the OINP website and submit a complete application for a provincial nomination. So what you've put on the expression of interest, there's more that you're going to need to complete and additional documents to submit once you are selected. And if you want to learn about what documents you might need, you can click the link below, and we have put a checklist of what you can expect to submit with that application. So it is possible for some people to meet the criteria, but to never actually get invited to apply for a provincial nomination because their NOC code might not be in demand or their score might not be high enough for the draws that are occurring. So you are going to want to check out those requirements as well. Now with all of these programs, whether it's Express Entry Aligned or Expression of Interest, you need to remember that you always need to have the intention to reside in Ontario as part of this application. So if you don't have the intention to Ontario, then you shouldn't be applying to these different programs. Now, each of these programs has a lot of extra requirements that we didn't get through in these videos because it would go on for several hours. But as I said, you can click the description below this video and we'll have all of the details for each of the different streams. Some of them are more complicated in others in terms of the work experience, where you graduated from, language requirements, scores, is your occupation one that's being selected? Because although some of these programs, as you're going to see, will accept anyone or it will accept the expression of interest from anyone whose job offer is in a tier level 0, 1, 2, or 3 occupation. But what we'll see, and the draw is when Ontario is actually selecting people, is they'll only pick specific NOC codes. So some NOC codes are never selected or haven't been in the last 2 years or so. So it's important to also check that and see if your NOC code is one that is being picked or not. So thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest Canadian immigration news and updates.